You're listening to Blockchain 2025. The future is right now. Every week, we explore implications of the technology underpinning cryptocurrencies. Blockchain.
Each episode is a standalone examination of one industry broken into 3 segments: a basic overview, blockchain's disruptive impact, and relevant crypto projects.
Blockchain 2025 is part of the Bitcoin.com podcast network. Learn about Bitcoin, create a wallet, and buy your first Satoshis all at Bitcoin.com.
Blake, welcome to Blockchain 2025. This is Matt Aaron, your co-host. This is our annual Tron episode. The reason I say Tron annually is that if this scheme stays relevant and they keep making moves in the real world, we have to cover it every year because they're trying to do like every single thing you can do with the blockchain they want to do. That's how big they're thinking.
I agree. Looking forward to diving into this one a little bit more, and good to be here as always, Matt.
Yeah, man, I'm coming to you from Orlando, and I do want to mention that I'm using a standing desk. I almost always record sitting down, and not only do I have a standing desk, I'm using a standing desk mat. Have you heard of them?
I haven't. No. What does that look like? And what does that entail?
I'll send you a photo. I sent it to Gergo, who's our marketing manager, because he's like really into standing desks, and it's a comfy rubber mat, right? And the whole idea is that you can comfortably stand. You don't have to be like upright, and there's like a little ball center that you can be chosen. So you can like basically play around with your feet on a soft mat that's supposed to extend the amount of time you're in standing mode. So I'm trying it out for a couple of days.
So I've tried standing desks before, and yeah, I can definitely see the benefit, but man, my legs get tired.
Dude, same way, man. Like I was doing a lot of standing desk like work, but maybe I'll get to an hour or two a day. There's that certain point, you know, when you're on a standing desk, and I'm not gonna lie, some days it might have been after 15 minutes, and you just unplug it, and then you like working from home, you take your laptop, you unplug it, and then you go to like your couch and just like lie down with your laptop for a little bit, like, I needed to rest, you know?
Well, you know, it's good. It's you're getting work done at the same time as exercising though, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, I've seen studies before where they say the sedentary lifestyle, that if you're just working, you know, sitting down in an office or a home office, doesn't matter, 40 hours a week, and you go to the gym 3 or 4 times and make some pretty big, you know, intense workouts, that's much less healthier than someone that works as a waiter or is on their feet all day, you know?
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I have to make a bit of a habit myself now when I'm working from home and from co-working spaces, just to get outside and get a bit of fresh air. It's kind of a must-have in any of my, however I set up my daily routine.
For sure. And like, what do you look for in a co-working space, man?
That's a tricky one. I'd say my favorite co-working space is a spot called Beach Hub in Thailand on an island called Koh Phangan. Beachfront co-working, you got fresh air. It's a very, very cool place to be working. I find that city co-working spaces are sometimes hit and miss. You know, you kind of have to pay a lot to get something really good. And kind of if you try and skimp, it can be a bit of a nightmare. Yeah, what do you look for in a co-working space?
No, I mean, I've been in some WeWorks. I do podcasting full time, Blake, so I can't be at a co-working space every day, because for recording, I can't be like, hey, everybody shut up, I'm about to record with Blake, you know? But I joined one in Spain, and I have joined some in South America as well, because it's nice to get out of the house, and, you know, sometimes they have cool events, and, you know, you can build a network there. But I tend to like, there was one beautiful one in Barcelona that I went to a couple days. It's actually where I recorded the John McAfee interview, because my buddy had like a private office there, and it was overlooking like the bay or the ocean, the inlet of the ocean. I'm getting the terminology wrong. And you could see Steve Jobs' wife's yacht from like the 2nd floor. And it was just very beautiful.
Nice.
But then I'm like, not bad, man. Yeah, man. So that was cool. And then another one I joined. The ones that I have problems with are where the Wi-Fi is not very good, because I'm just like, man, I need the fast Wi-Fi.
Yeah, it's interesting. I wonder if there's room for, there's actually a couple of different blockchain driven co-working spaces. I can't remember the name, but there are definitely a couple. We should maybe focus on them one episode. That'd be interesting to check out.
For sure. And last piece of news before we get into Tron, Blake, this might be the last time I record. I'm exaggerating a lot, but Bitcoin Cash hard fork is, you know, in what, like 36 hours, 48 hours? And no one really knows what's going to happen. And so, Blake, if for some reason, you know, Bitcoin Cash goes down and Bitcoin.com says, hey, we need to like chill on the podcast. It's been a great ride.
It's been a pleasure, Matt. It really has. No, it is. It does seem all very doomsday-esque, doesn't it? But let's see what happens. Who knows? It's going to be an exciting 36 hours ahead, I'm sure.
Actually, this is pretty exciting. I don't know if we can timestamp this on the blockchain with audio yet, but I'm going to go on the record as well. I think Blake and I are both saying that things will be fine and we'll keep recording. It may take a couple weeks to sort out, but the media likes to cover even the crypto media likes to cover the controversy. So, the articles do tend to exaggerate towards doomsday scenarios, but I'm predicting right now that we'll be continuing to record blockchain 2025.
I agree. Yeah. I don't think everyday users are going to notice so much. Who knows what's going to happen, but I think it will just kind of be business as usual. So let's see.
For sure. And each week, Blake, we cover a different industry, right? We've done gambling, adult entertainment, like last week, art, file storage. But, this week I'm calling it working title here, everything on the blockchain, because Tron is trying to do everything. What if everything could be on the blockchain? And listeners, because the majority of their products, like most blockchain products, are not live, there may be some buzzwords here, but Blake and I will do our best to keep it in layman's terms and not use too many buzzwords.
Right.
And Blake's better at it than I am, so I'm just going to ask the question. Blake, what is Tron?
Okay. This is tricky without, like you said, being full of buzzwords, but I'd say they're trying to do a new version of the web, a new version of the internet. So they're just trying to make sure that every service you use online is serviced in a decentralized way through their platform. And a kind of key part of that, I'd say, is looking at content distribution and how people consume content and share content as creators, and how that's incentivized as well. Because there's a lot of issues with that right now. So, but there are so many facets to this. like we discussed earlier, Matt. There are literally so many businesses within Tron that they're trying to push out. So, yeah, I don't really know where to start.
Yeah, it's tough because I think we'll start with the founder, but this is going to be an introductory episode to Tron. And like I said, if they're still around, we'll cover them every year because they have a very ambitious plan. And you mentioned media. They have a decentralized exchange, which is live. Actually just launched today or yesterday, which is awesome. Or maybe a couple of days before. But like the media creation content, we did a whole episode on media, like a decentralized YouTube, decentralized social networks. But it all starts with the founder, who some think may be the protege to Jack Ma, the founder of Alibaba. And Tron's going big. There's no doubt about it. His name is Justin Sun. He's only 28 years old. He's a phenom. And Blake, tell us a little bit about Justin.
Yeah, so if you kind of wanted to sum up his LinkedIn in a few words, it's just insanely extensive. For Forbes 30 under 30, that's both in Forbes China, I think, and also Forbes Asia. Yeah, he's kind of been getting around in those charts, which has to say something, right? On top of that, he was involved in Ripple fairly early on. So he's the former chief representative of Ripple in China, founded Peiwu, which was an app trying to be China's Snapchat. I mean, this guy, for a 28-year-old, he's done a lot. I'm turning 27 in a couple of weeks, and he makes me feel very, very, very much like I've not done too much so far.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, he's done quite a lot. And yeah, like you said, and he goes big. He's got that like high-level performing entrepreneur bravado where he makes big plays, and I think some examples we'll talk about related to Tron, but a lot of ICOs are criticized for not having a product and getting money first. But this is something that I really only have seen with Tron, or Blake really made me think about this. Tron did that as well. This huge marketing, this white paper, and being quote unquote the $1 billion white paper. They're worth 1.4 billion at the time of recording. Having said that, they took advantage of the bull market, and it does look like they're actually spending this money and making things happen. And whether or not that was a good investment, we'll see. But I do give them credit for kind of, I don't want to say taking advantage is the right word, but they were able to raise a lot of cash, and there is an advantage to having a lot of money. I mean, they acquired BitTorrent.
Right, exactly. And I think when you kind of, I don't know, hindsight is a beautiful thing, and you don't know, no one could have seen, this bear market coming, but you have to think that they got fortunate in the way they did it. They went big, like you said, raised all this money, and now they're actually spending it. But yeah, I think BitTorrent as an acquisition, that's a pretty bold move. Like BitTorrent have been around for a while. I think they got 100 million users right now or thereabouts, and they're kind of they're in the thoughts of many people. So for Tron to be acquiring them and getting access to that user base, I don't know, that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, and think of it this way. I mean, BitTorrent, for those that don't know, I mean, downloading movies, files, BitTorrent was kind of the evolution off Napster. Instead of Napster, where we would download one file from one user, BitTorrent was the first to say, okay, this movie you're going to download, each person hosts a very small part of the file. And so you're getting different parts of the movie from multiple seeds on there. And just like now they have decentralized file storage systems, which will be the same thing, like Coin. And Tron also has a distributed file storage system. But what I mean to say is like a decentralized Dropbox. Everyone knows what Dropbox is, or Google Drive. It's not that you're going to store your whole Google Doc or the show notes for this doc or MP3 on one person's computer. Many computers are going to have a small piece of that file. So if, you're somehow able to hack one person's computer, they wouldn't have any complete files.
And it's really interesting as well when you really think about what Tron is. So they actually started out as an ERC20 token and then moved to their own mainnet back around 5 or 6 months ago now. So it wasn't ERC20 token before, so it was based on Ethereum. But now on their mainnet, it's actually, as a cryptocurrency, 80 times faster than Ethereum. So to say that it's, in the same league, because there are tons of cryptocurrencies out there that are fast, and they all say, oh, we're faster than Bitcoin, we're faster than Ethereum. But when they're actually kind of fighting for that top 10, top 20 market cap space, you've got to kind of take note of that. And like you just said as well, partnered with BitTorrent, you have to think that's a pretty powerful thing, right? Being that fast.
Yeah. And others have the speed, but they don't really have any products working yet. I mean, they have a decentralized exchange, and listeners that don't know, Coinbase would be a centralized exchange. This would be a peer-to-peer exchange of cryptocurrencies, crypto assets, and people are building on top of it. There's assets created already on top of Tron, like a Baccarat coin for like playing Baccarat. And now I'm a pretty big gambler, so I know what it is, but it's one of the most popular. I think it's more popular than blackjack, far more popular than blackjack in China. And I think China is pretty important to mention because we mentioned this guy founded a competitor to WeChat, but they're trying to decentralize a lot of media and publishing, like a decentralized internet, decentralized Facebook, decentralized YouTube. I mean, Justin's Chinese, and I don't think that's a coincidence, man. The amount of censorship on the Chinese internet, I think China's towards the top in terms of how restricted the content is.
Right. He's got to have an interesting perspective on this. I think being from China and kind of growing up with that, he's grew up as that was in full force. So I'm sure he's definitely got some answers to that. I don't know. I'm intrigued how that sits with kind of China and what their thoughts are towards Tron. That'd be interesting to explore. I haven't really looked into that personally, but did you check that out?
What do people think about Tron in China?
Yeah, I wonder what the sentiment is. I wonder like how it's distributed globally, like in terms of who's holding it and who's using it. I'd love to understand that a little bit more. That'd be cool.
Okay, so I'm not an expert here, but based on the fact that the decentralized exchange has a lot of Chinese tokens, or almost all Chinese tokens,
yeah,
it makes me think that they're stronger in Asia than they are in the United States.
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense. Very interesting.
So social media, online gambling, a decentralized exchange. In their roadmap, they have various things in a roadmap of when they're going to launch. They also want to do decentralized prediction markets, which we did a whole show on, where people can bet on anything. Who's going to win the presidential election? What will soy futures be in Thailand? So we've covered kind of the pros. They're going big. They're trying to be this huge decentralized media platform, a decentralized internet, very fast and cheap for transactions. They acquired a real company. How many blockchain, have actually acquired a real company? I know they have a bunch of small partnerships. Like they partner with like a decentralized bike sharing service in Singapore that built their coin on that. So, I mean, there are some projects being built on top of Tron like Ethereum. And I do think that it's worth mentioning here, blockchain investment and development is faster in Asia, but there is a bias, maybe just because we don't speak Mandarin, so we don't hear as much about Asia. So we tend to think of other projects in the US maybe as bigger than they are. We don't realize the potential of some of these projects in Asia. This is definitely one of them.
They seem to go under the radar a little bit sometimes, right?
For sure.
You find that they'll literally just sneak in and then all of a sudden they're so huge that you can't ignore them anymore. And you just think, wow, how did I miss that? And it's just because you're not getting the Chinese news or the Asian news.
For sure. So we have this large peer-to-peer network for everything. But that's not to say there haven't been a lot of controversies. And there are some concerns with Tron that we also need to cover.
Right. They've had a few things go down in the past that have definitely, led to a few people to be skeptical. So even going back to the actual white paper itself, so that it's been highlighted as potentially a bit of a copy paste job. That there seems to be a lot of things that are copied direct from the Ethereum white paper and others as well. There definitely are some question marks there. What are your thoughts on that, Matt?
So they raised $70 million on a white paper that may or may not have plagiarized.
Which is a strong move. That's a very strong move.
Very strong move there.
But if you can pull it off, right? If you can pull it off, I mean, the thing is that what they've said they're going to do, they do seem to be doing it right now. But as you said, there definitely have been some controversies. And I think there was one as well about, about this probably than me, Matt, about Justin Sun possibly pulling out funds. There was talk of that a while ago. I don't know if that was just a rumor.
Oh, yeah. It was about Justin Sun pulling out $400 million. But it turns out that it wasn't true. And Justin Sun proved it. Basically, someone did sell a lot of Tron, but it wasn't him. And, cashed out, $400 million, which is not a good sign if the founder does that. But the main piece of evidence was this same user had an account on CryptoKitties. And listeners, those were these digital assets built on top of Ethereum that clog the blockchain that you could own, like digital Beanie Babies, digital collectibles, CryptoKitties, and his account name had Justin in the name. And that was the only evidence they had, if you can even call it evidence. But yeah, they've had some sloppy PR to say the least. It's tough because there's a lot of people that want it to fail. I mean, the old school, I think, the old school Bitcoin people are not huge fans of Tron. I'm generalizing there, and I can understand that because it's against the Bitcoin ethos of this pre-mine. They're kind of doing the plagiarized white paper before the product and raising all this money. But I do think that more than some of the other projects that, listen, a lot of these projects are not worth anything and there's a lot of scam and hype. I do think, consciously or unconsciously, I think Ricardo Fluffy Pony of Monero, some of these founders do feel the going big and the chops, I'd say, of Justin Sun and Tron.
But I think as well, you have to think that what they're chewing off is a big bite. They're really trying to pull off something really big. And I think that's probably where concern of mine comes from as well. And I think a lot of other people too. So just going back to what you mentioned there as well about, they've had some sloppy PR in the past. So Justin Sun, when they've been talking about partnerships, like 2017 was the year of crypto partnerships. Everyone was like, yeah, we're partnering with whoever to just basically get their coin more press and get cut through the noise. So he actually announced that they were partnering with the Baofeng group, and they called Baofeng, which is this Chinese app. They basically he called it AKA Chinese Netflix with 200 million users. But that was kind of debunked a little bit as people said, well, no, that's a bit of a, you can't really say that. It's not really a fair comparison. They're very different businesses and kind of probably Baofeng doesn't have the clout that Netflix does. So there are a few kind of question marks, but he's pulled it off. And I guess now is the point where he's actually starting to deliver on those promises. This could have been a very different story, I think. Like this could have definitely been, one of those scenarios where this guy just raised all this money and then we kind of didn't hear too much about it. But it is good to hear that there are actually products.
Yeah.
But my question to you, Matt, is do you actually think that a decentralized cryptocurrency network or Web 4.0, whatever you want to call it, do you think that can compete with, the big content companies and web companies today? Do you think that can be a thing?
I'm not sure. I mean, I'd have to really go deep in this. And none of us are sure exactly how this is going to play out. But that's another concern, that trying to do too much. I mean, saying that they can compete with Netflix and Spotify, cut out the Apple Store and Google Play Store, which I think is interesting because of the censorship of apps, which is going to become more and more of a problem with these decentralized apps going forward. If they have a gatekeeper of the Apple Store and Google Play Store, I think there will need to be a solution. But yeah, I don't know, man. I think any startup, the odds would be heavily against them, right? But that's, to be a unicorn, to be this big, you have to have, tens of thousands of one to odds against you.
Yeah.
I also agree that the partnership thing, you've seen this with Ripple, you've seen this with IOTA. The word partnership in the whole crypto space, the connotation changed for a lot of them just because you're doing a trial with a bank and they're going to test it out like a pilot program. I don't know if I consider that a partnership. To me, at least my definition, the way I understand a partnership is like, hey, we have a full-on thing. launched and working together as partners, not just as, okay, we'll try it out. We'll give you a test. We'll do a demo of your product. And the word partnership is definitely passed around pretty freely.
I agree, and it's got to the point now where people in this space have got wise to that. I think when it first started being thrown around, it was like, wow, yeah, IOTA have got a partnership with, I don't know, like it was like Bosch for washing machines. Like, what are they going to do? But all it is they're literally just scoping out whether they can work together and have a document signed that says we may explore working with you or something like to that effect.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you got a meeting with Microsoft, and they're like, well, yeah, we have a meeting with them for coffee downstairs in the building. It's like partnership.
Tell Twitter.
Tell Twitter, yeah. And we saw this last year, and the price movements would be gigantic. And it is funny, man. I don't know if this caused a large price bump, but like a decentralized, bike sharing service in Singapore, which is cool, partnering with Tron, should that really move the market cap $100 million? I don't know.
Probably not.
And so, yeah, I mean, gambling, media, the YouTube, publishing, social media, prediction markets. The last concern I have is you look at someone's white paper and they talk about something like prediction markets and we both know Paul Storch to some degree, the godfather of decentralized prediction markets. And this is a very hard thing. Augur's kind of doing it, but they're having problems that hasn't been proven. And there's some very hard problems that need to be solved. So they say, oh yeah, a couple of years from now on a roadmap, we'll do decentralized prediction markets. That's a gamble in and of itself. Will they be able to pull it off?
Yeah, and like you said, people like Paul Storch, they've been working on products in this space for years now. So you do have to think, well, that's quite a big undertaking. Let's see. I think, as you said, this definitely warrants an annual check-in. I'll be keeping a close eye on it, that's for sure.
Yeah, and so we'll check up on that. I mean, last thing I'd like to know is, I know a couple BitTorrent employees left.
Yeah.
I don't know if they resigned because they were upset or Tron had some people they wanted to put in, but, what does like BitTorrent think about Tron, since they're kind of like underneath them? Would be cool to figure out. And, as someone that's looking to maybe getting involved with Tron, that might be a place to try to find some, do some PI and find some information.
Yeah, I'm very intrigued by how Tron and BitTorrent are going to fit together. BitTorrent is synonymous with, well, I guess free stuff. So how did Tron as a cryptocurrency and a business that's trying to be for profit, how do they slot into that and stay within the original kind of ethos behind BitTorrent? Or do they say screw you and just flip the whole thing on its head and and totally change the model? It'll be very intriguing to see how that pans out.
Yeah, and there's a couple other things we got to mention, right? They plan on also doing interoperability, which is like the other thing, working with Ethereum, EOS blockchains. I mean, they've basically anything that can be done with blockchain, they have in their roadmap. But then when they talk about the decentralized version of the internet, and they have the Tron Foundation, which is pretty powerful. They own BitTorrent. It feels very, from the outside looking in, it feels pretty centralized for the beginning of the decentralized internet.
You do have to think, are they reinventing the wheel or are they just changing ownership?
Yeah, it's funny, Blake, like before the call, we were like, man, I want to get some Tron. This just sounds really exciting. Like, this is big. And like Jack Ma, like the next Jack Ma and the protege. But now after going through the concerns, I'm kind of like, okay, maybe I need to hold off for a bit here. I don't know. How do you feel, man?
Like with any cryptocurrency you're looking to buy, I think you should always be skeptical and always kind of be critical of what you're thinking of putting your money into. It's good to understand what the concerns are of other people in this space too. You always want to dig a little bit deeper. I think with this case and looking at Tron, I think it's really promising. They've still got a lot of work to do and it's still very early days. So let's see how it pans out.
But yeah, well, let's see. If they're still in the top 15 a year from now, we'll do another update. But I encourage you to check it out. We'll link to the Tron Foundation and everything at podcast.bitcoin.com. And yeah, man, listeners, thanks so much for hanging with us here in season 4. And yeah, we'll see you next week.
See you next week, guys.
Blockchain 2025 family. Listen to this. We talked about Tron going big. Isn't that right, Blake?
Yeah, but it's definitely just gone a little bit bigger as well.
Yeah, so in between recording and publishing this episode, maybe a 2-week time frame, I saw some news that I had to share. Tron's having a conference next year, and guess who their keynote speaker is?
One and only Kobe Bryant.
Kobe Bryant one of the best basketball players of all time, world famous. And he actually just won an Oscar for an animated short film. And he's becoming a Hall of Fame investor and businessman and creative man in Hollywood in his own right. So Tron's trying to take over media. Kobe Bryant is turning into a media mogul. He has 2 children's books coming up next year. He's working in Hollywood. He won an Oscar.
Wow.
I think about it because like Ripple had, like Bill Clinton and just kind of just famous people for being famous. It's obviously, it catches your eyeballs. But considering Tron's trying to take over media, there is some sense to this PR stunt.
Right. I'm just reading as well a little bit more into it. And it's basically saying that kind of, one of his businesses, the venture capital firm that he's working with, they basically have some dealings already with Alibaba, who, as we mentioned in the podcast, owned and founded by Jack Ma, who considers Justin's son his protege. So you can kind of see where the connection is and how they've found that route. That would kind of make a lot of sense if that's how it's ended up coming together.
Good detective work there, Blake. Well, hey, we just wanted to share that, and we'll see. Maybe we'll revisit Tron next year and see how far they have come. Thanks a lot, Blake.
See you guys next time.
Thanks for listening to the Bitcoin.com podcast network. To learn more about our shows, visit Bitcoin.com/podcast. Bitcoin.com podcast network.
The Humans of Bitcoin podcast tells the stories of people whose lives have been impacted by cryptocurrency and blockchain technology. The guests of the show range from activists and refugees to artists, entrepreneurs, adult entertainment stars, and economists. The show is for everyone. Subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, or Stitcher, part of the Bitcoin.com podcast network.